Okay, so listen. Um, my name's Irene, um, and this way. Okay, um, and this is also my first speech ever at a conference, and I've been going to them for like 6, 7 years. So yeah, I'm really nervous. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I'm a huge procrastinator with everything, and this speech was not an exception. So, yeah, so I might just kind of ramble on a little bit, but excuse me if I do. Okay, so my speech is on eyesight, and I wanted to talk about how God gave us and other animals lots of different types of eyesight. My speech was going to be on animals, but then I changed it to eyesight, and then I just combined the two. But then I want to link this concept to the Quran and how what we see with our eyes is less than 1/1,000,000th of reality. So I'm going to start off with the human eye. And these are my favorite pairs of eyes. If you guys can guess whose eyes these are. There you go, yeah. Okay. So the human eye is amazing, subhanAllah. I work for an eye doctor right now because I want to be an optometrist, God willing. I don't know if you guys know Paria Kadra. She's an awesome eye doctor if you ever need an eye exam. But so yeah, the eye is amazing, and I just kind of want to go over some facts and just sort of break down the structure of the eye a little bit, or at least what I kind of know about it. So first we have something that's called a cornea, which is sort of like a lens that focuses the light that comes in. And so sometimes when you have bad vision, it's usually the cornea that is what causes it. So if you have misshapen cornea, if it's too long or too short, that's what will cause your bad vision. And then you have something called, So then you have something called a pupil. So the pupil isn't actually a structural part of the eye. It's just the space in between the eye. So you guys see the colored part of your eye, right? So that black part is actually just like a hole that lets in light. And the reason why we see black is because it doesn't let any light come back out. So you know how, I don't know if you've ever heard in your science classes that when black absorbs all light, right? And so that's when you wear black clothing outside, you get really, really hot. It's because it's absorbing all of that energy. And so that's what's happening. So that black part in your eye absorbs all that light. So when you're in darkness, right, your pupils will actually dilate. So they'll get bigger because it's trying to let in a lot more light. But then let's say suddenly you shine a bright flashlight into someone's eye, the pupils will actually just become really, really small because it's trying to block out some of that light and kind of lessen it. So the pupil exists sort of to kind of let in light. And then you have something called the lens, which is right behind the pupil, and this allows the light to kind of focus and kind of hit the back of your eye. And the back of your eye is where you receive you have photoreceptors. So photoreceptors are basically nerve cells that that detect light, and it uses those signals, whether it's like the shape of something or the color of something or the size, whether you're in darkness or light, it essentially translates that as signals to your brain. And so it's a little odd because these are the nerves, right? Sorry, wait, no, hold on. Yeah, this is the nerve right here, and then this is the retina. So the retina is the part that kind of has those nerves, I think. What's really interesting is that, so I think I hit all the points. But okay, so here's just some facts about the eye. So the simplest eyes, which I'll go over in a little bit, were patches of photoreceptor proteins in single-celled animals. Your eyes, actually, what's really interesting is that baby's eyes start to develop within 2 weeks of conception. So before you even know that you're pregnant, your baby's eyes have already started to develop. But you know what's really interesting is that even though they're born, the baby's eyes aren't actually fully developed for another 9 to 12 months after they're actually out of the womb. And so when they're first born, they don't really see anything. Their vision hasn't really fully developed. So within the first month or so, they only see about 8 to 12 inches right in front of their faces. And so that's why it's usually the mother that they recognize the most. And they usually go off of the mother's smell in the very beginning because they can't see her yet. So it's really amazing. The entire length of all the eyelashes shed by a human in their lifetime is almost over 98 feet, with each eyelash having a span of about 5 months. So you constantly have new eyelashes every 5 months. So if you ever get eyelash extensions, just know that they're not going to last forever. So to protect our eyes, our eyes are positioned in a hollowed eye socket, and our eyebrows exist to avoid like sweat coming into our eyes. And have you guys ever gotten sweat in your eyes? It's just not fun, you know, when you're at the gym and that saltiness just stings, right? So when we're showering, also that's something to be appreciative. We have eyebrows literally to protect eyes from coming in, water from coming into our eyes. Our eyelashes exist not just to look pretty, praise God, but also to get rid of any dust or just debris that might get in our faces. So if ever, it's like a windy day, just blink a lot, and God willing, you can kind of hopefully not let any dust in. The cornea are the only tissues that don't get blood, which is really amazing because if you accidentally scratch your cornea, the eye can heal itself really quickly, like within 48 hours. It's like scratching your skin, right? And it stings a little bit, but when you do it, subhanAllah, it can heal itself within 48 hours. What's amazing is an eye cannot be transplanted. So we can transplant hearts, kidneys, livers, right? But the eye is the one thing that we can't transplant. And the reason why is because it's so complicated, because there's a million nerve fibers that connect each eye to our brain. So here, like, it seems really, really simple, but this is a million nerve fibers that are connecting to your brain. And so if you were to even attempt it, like, there's no way you would possibly be able to create what God created naturally, right? 80% of our memories are determined by what we see, which is amazing. That's how prevalent our vision is to the way we shape our memories and just our life, how we live our life. What's interesting is I think there's 5 lobes in the brain, the way they categorize it. And there's one lobe that's literally named after a occipital lobe for your vision, because your brain essentially devotes 50% of itself just perceiving vision. So 50% of your brain is just to perceive your vision. Okay, and humans and dogs are the only species known to seek visual cues from another individual's eyes. So sometimes, let's say you've upset your spouse and you're trying to see if you, got back into their good graces. You kind of look into their eyes to see, like, if they've forgiven you, right? So we're the only creatures other than dogs that do that. There are no other creatures that really do that we know of. And what's interesting also is that dogs only do that with human beings, not with dogs. So yeah. So a fingerprint, right? So you know how fingerprints can't be are unique to every single person. So the reason why is because fingerprints have 40 distinct characteristics. So that's how you can kind of identify one person from another. But the iris has 256 distinct characteristics. And that's why, when you go through a security system, you know how they scan your eye? That's even more secure than a fingerprint, because your eye is almost like 6 times as more like diversified from any other human being. So yeah, so no one has the same exact eyes. People who are blind that lost their vision after they were able to see can actually still see in their dreams, which is amazing. So years after, like 30, 40 years after going blind, people will still see dreams of what they used to be able to see. So that's how powerful the brain is, you know. Red eye, so if you're ever taking a photograph, the red eye that you see in your photos that you always try and want to Photoshop is caused because of the light from the flash, which bounces off the back of the eye. So that redness is actually due to like the retina and like the blood in your eyes. So that's the red that you're seeing. It's literally the flash reflecting off the blood in your eyes. Yeah, and 80% of what we learn is through our eyes. And after the brain, the eyes are the most complex organs in our bodies. So yeah, that's basically some facts that I just wanted to go over. And then I just want to go over some how some creatures see and how their vision is different from ours. So I'm going to start with the simplest creatures. So do starfish have eyes? Do they? Yes, they do, yeah. But they don't have two eyes like Patrick Star here, right? In fact, their eyes are actually at each of their legs or their arms or whatever they're called. So this is their eye. So imagine your eyes at like your fingertips, you know, if you had to live your life like that. So they don't actually see what we see. They're actually just like flatworms. So flatworms have basically two, it's like a concave, not a concave, it's a convex like eye cup that allows light to come in, and they don't see shapes or anything. All they can detect is just light. And so the way that flatworms kind of live is if they detect light, so if they see light in this direction, right, they can kind of usually see right here, they'll go away from the light, and that's kind of how they survive. That's like sort of their adaptation. So this is probably one of the simplest eyes that exists, is just the detection of light. So imagine if you just had to walk around with your eyes closed all the time and someone just shone a light in your eyes. That's how these creatures live every day. So then, I don't remember the exact scientific name of this fish, but this is a fish, and it's called the four-eyed fish because even though it has two eyeballs like we do, what's really interesting is that it's kind of divided. So what it can do is, as it pokes its head up, it can both see above the water and underneath the water at the same time. So it's really cool. And then you have this is a squid. I'm not sure if you guys recognize squids, but yeah, this is a squid. And squids are so amazing because they have their eyes are very similar to ours. But what's really fascinating, this is something I learned in my biology class earlier this year. What's really fascinating is, so this is how our eyes are, and this is how the squid's eyes are, right? And so we have a blind spot, and the reason why we have a blind spot is because imagine like the optic nerve, it's like literally like a pipe. Basically, we have a bunch of wires going out of our eyes and then just coming out back this way. Whereas the squids, it makes sense because these are the nerves, and then these are the nerves that kind of fire back to the brain. And so what's really interesting is that this is like the inverted version of this. And so that's the reason why we have a blind spot. I'm not really sure why, but yeah, that's just really interesting. And then also squids have the largest eyes in the world. Their eyes are literally the size of like a dinner plate. So it's the size of your head. So yeah, so it's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the bald eagle has probably one of the best visions in the world. They can see so far. So we have 20/20 vision, but they have 24 vision, 20/4. And so what that means is they can literally see almost 4 times as far as we can. A way to kind of imagine is like, let's say the eagle's on top of a 10-story building, they can literally see an ant crawling on the ground 10 stories down. So that's how precise and amazing that bald eagle's eyes are. And the way they can do that is because they have, I think, like a second layer of a lens, so it allows them to see more, and they also have more nerves. What's really interesting is also they can see things in polarized vision as well as in UV light. So polarized is something that we can only see if we're wearing sunglasses. So here's an example of that. So here's what we will see non-polarized, and so they can see all of these details in broad daylight, and we can only see this if we're wearing sunglasses. And then they can also see UV. So this is what we'll normally see, and they can see this. So this is what they're seeing, right? Owls are also amazing because their eyes, you know how our eyeballs move? So our eyes constantly have to move, whether we want to or not. It's an involuntary thing. And the reason why it has to do that is because it'll start to go out of focus. And so our eyes will just naturally move so that nothing goes out of focus, I think. But owls, their eyes don't move. They just stay still in their heads. And so that's the reason why when you see videos of owls, they have to move their entire head to look at something. So owls can literally swivel their head a full 270 degrees. So it's amazing. So you can literally just go like that, you know? So yeah, praise God. So I just wanted to quickly talk, well, I already kind of briefly talked about this. So a lot of creatures can see polarized vision. A lot of them can see in UV light. So bees see in UV light. This is what bees see. So this is the light spectrum, the full light spectrum. And this is what we see. This little tiny sliver here is the amount of light that we see in our lives, right? And people who are colorblind see even less than this. So this tiny little bit is what we see, and there are creatures that can see in ultraviolet, they can see in infrared. I mean, like, subhanAllah, like, we honestly are so, like, we really don't know what's out there. We don't know what we don't see, right? So yeah, just a few more creatures and we're almost done. The dragonfly. Dragonfly probably has the most complex eyes. So we have two eyes. They have compound eyes, so technically they have about 30,000. Okay, so they have 30,000 of these. So essentially, so do you see all those little dots? That's, each of those is getting a separate image that we get in one eyeball. And so, so you can see here, this is like a magnification. So this is like one eye, and then these are all the nerves that are kind of going back into the brain. Bees also see in UV light, and it's amazing because what we see in a flower, we see this, but they'll see this. But it's amazing because they can actually pinpoint the pollen really quickly. So yeah. Yeah, this is what a dragonfly will technically see. So yeah. Okay, and then I had a video to play, which will be really short. But I don't know if you can click on that. Both of them, I think. For the snake, you can go to the first minute.
Skip the ad.
Okay, so these are hummingbirds. And hummingbirds, if you've never seen them before, I actually never saw a hummingbird until I moved to California. I'm originally from New York, and I've never seen a hummingbird in New York before. So yeah, so literally it took me 23 years to see a hummingbird. But they're super, super tiny, and they move really, really fast. And the reason why I mention that, so because they're so small, they lose body heat really quickly. So we generate body heat really quickly, but because they're so small, they lose body heat very quickly. So they have to constantly move to basically not die from cold, right? And so At nighttime, when they go to sleep, they have to stay still, right? So the way they survive is something called torpor. And so they'll basically lower their metabolism until they're practically almost near death, just so they can survive the night. And then when they wake up, they need to eat immediately. And so because they're able to see in UV vision, whoops. My clicker doesn't work.
All warm objects
because they can see
constantly
in
emit
UV
heat
vision,
in the
they can
form of
find food really
infrared
quickly
radiation.
by God's leave, and they
The
can
camera
survive every day.
senses
So
this
it's essentially
infrared
like
in
hibernation.
amazing
Like,
detail.
you know how bears hibernate for like 6 months straight,
It
and
means
when they
Michael
wake up,
can record the snake's movement in total
Yeah.
darkness.
Can you go to the first minute?
This camera is really useful for us here tonight because it allows us to see basically what the snake is seeing. We are looking through a snake's eyes when we use this infrared sensitive camera.
The goal of this experiment is to see whether the snake can sense a warm object in the pitch black.
Can you go to the first minute? Minute 1. Or like 1 minute, 15 seconds. Thanks.
The balloon is warm, the background is relatively cool.
Handling a large python in the day requires great care. It's even more difficult in the dark. Michael covers the snake with a box until he's ready to start the experiment.
These snakes have lots of teeth, so if they bite you, you know it.
But for Michael, it's worth the risk. If the experiment works, the footage will be a world first.
So after the lights are off, we'll remove the box from the snake. The snake will be free, and hopefully we'll see some very interesting behavior. We'll learn something new about this amazing, unusual sensory system.
In the pitch black of the swamp at night, conventional vision is useless.
It's really dark. I can barely see to get this box off the snake. I'm afraid I might look like a warm balloon to this snake. We'll uncover the snake. It's a good thing we have this infrared camera. Otherwise, I'd have no idea where the snake is.
The sensitive infrared camera picks up the faint heat of the snake as a vivid orange, and the warm balloon as a bright white.
Here he comes. Tongue flicking at it, moving his head with it. He definitely sees it. He definitely sees it. He's got eyes, but it is pitch black dark out here. So something else is telling him that that balloon is there. It is absolutely dark. It cannot be using its eyes, but it's following the motion of that balloon. It knows that balloon is there.
Okay. Do you mind going back to the slide? Thanks. So snakes see in infrared. So it's really amazing how diverse our vision is. So the reason why I wanted to bring up this topic is, one, because it's beautiful, subhanAllah. In 1678, it says, God brought you out of your mother's bellies knowing nothing, and he gave you the hearing, the eyesight, and the brains that you may be appreciative. 2378. He is the one who granted you the hearing, the eyesight, and the brains. Rarely are you appreciative. So not just appreciating our vision, but how God provides for all his creatures with the senses that they're given. But it's not just about vision. So even though what we see is beautiful and it's encapsulating and it's a blessing, it's really, really limiting, because only 50% of our brain is devoted to eyesight, right? And we're biologically prone to only seeing and believing what's in front of us. And I think this can be really limiting because, and this can be really limiting because this nearsightedness, this lack of vision, is what can lead you to hell if you don't realize that there's more to this life than what you see. In 1026, you would envision hell. Then you would see it with the eye of certainty. And then 75, but the human being tends to believe only what he sees in front of him. He doubts the day of resurrection. Once the vision is sharpened and the moon is eclipsed and the sun and the moon crash into one another, the human being will say on that day, where is the escape? So unless you use your brain along with the visions and the hearing that God has given you, your vision is what will lead you essentially to help, because this isn't reality, right? What we see in front of us, our vision is just a small percent of what we actually see. I mean, we just looked at a whole bunch of creatures that see so many different things, and I think that should be enough proof that shows that what we're seeing right now is not really reality. And what real life is the hereafter. It's worshiping God alone. And so what we have to do is use our brains along with our visions and our hearing to worship God. So then in 34:14, when the appointed time for his death came, they had no clue that he had died, not until one of the animals tried to eat his staff and he fell down, that the jinns realized that he was dead. They thus realized that if they really knew the unseen, they would have stopped working so hard as soon as he died. So even the jinns don't see everything, right? Only God sees everything, and God sees us, and we have to be aware of God and the hereafter, and we have to make the hereafter and God a reality, because these are not things that we see right in front of us, and it's really hard to remember that. And so that is why we have to use our brains to remember that constantly, to make it a reality for us. Otherwise it won't be a reality, and otherwise, we're the ones whose visions are going to have to be sharpened on the day of resurrection. We do the sharpening right now. We sharpen our visions right now by being aware and by being aware of God and worshiping Him, and then we won't end up like that, God willing. And then 97, does he think that no one sees him? Did we not give him 2 eyes? So these 2 eyes are not just to see this world. We're supposed to use that knowledge. And then 22:46, did they not roam the earth, then use their minds to understand and use their ears to hear? Indeed, the real blindness is not the blindness of the eyes, but the blindness of the hearts inside the chests. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah, questions. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah.
Can your eyes get sunburnt?
You can damage your eyes. I don't know if you can, but
Like,
sun
how come
damage.
sometimes the white part?
Yes, they can.
Oh, okay. I always wanted to know that.
Okay.
Is that why
get
sometimes
suntan.
the white part is really white and sometimes it's not?
Yes, it could be. Resident eye doctor. Who? Huh?
Irene,
Oh, some creatures do have third eyes, I guess.
Irene, can you explain about the eye color? Why some people have blue one?
So I think genetically, I think they say that all the first human, I think Adam had brown eyes, and then having blue eyes is like a mutation, so you lose that gene, like it's like a mutation, and so that's when you started having blue eyes, and then I think it's genetics. It's definitely genetics. Yeah.
Irene, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How did you like working with Paria?
I'm great. I still work for her, so I can't say anything. I'm just joking. Any other questions? Yeah.
My question is on a detached retina. You know how you showed the ring around what appeared to be the back of the eye?
Yeah.
All right, so if you're hit in the front of the eye, how does that retina get detached? You following what I'm saying?
I think physically it gets detached because of the trauma, I think. Just so you know, I'm not an eye doctor yet. I haven't even gone to optometrist. This is only from the internet, guys. Use Google, not me. I am not your source of knowledge.
Diagnosis.
Okay.
No. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Good job. Okay.